Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
In the dark, a little voice called out, "Mama, oh mama," and then a soft crying sound. Colonel Trevithick heard the cries and felt a new sadness. He hadn't thought much about his little girl since his wife died 5 hours ago. She passed away just as she kissed him goodbye, taking his love with her to the heavens. He loved her deeply from the first moment they met. Someone had mentioned Maud Harrison, and when he saw her, he fell in love with her beautiful brown eyes and gentle demeanor. He quickly proposed, and they got married. He never regretted it until these past few days when he realized he couldn't keep his wife from leaving him for a place beyond his reach. She was a good person and didn't mind leaving their happy life on earth to go to heaven. She wanted to live, especially for her daughter, but seeing her husband's grief made it harder. Before she passed, she comforted him, saying she'd always be near, listening when they needed her. Now, hearing his daughter's cries, Colonel Trevithick wondered if his wife could hear too. He went to his daughter's room, where she slept alone since she turned 6. She hugged him, saying she wanted her mom to kiss her goodnight. Bessie, their helper, said it wouldn't happen, but Maudie didn't believe her, thinking her mom wasn't always right. She was still so young. It felt hard to find the right words. Should he tell her that her mom would never kiss her again? But how could he be sure? Didn't God promise good things to those who loved him? Maybe that included bringing back lost hopes and reuniting with loved ones somewhere. He thought it must, or heaven wouldn't mean much without his Maud. He tried to soften the truth. Your mom can't kiss you now, my dear, but you can kiss her. So he picked up his daughter, feeling like both her dad and mom, and took her to the room where her mom lay still, with a peaceful smile on her face. He let Maudie climb onto the bed, where she always kissed her mom since she got sick. "Mama feels very cold," she said, "and she doesn't move. Can she hear me?" He gently explained, "She's gone, my dear. It's what we call death. No one understands it, but it happens to everyone someday, and it's part of God's plan. Your mom can't talk to us anymore, and soon we won't see her. But she believed she'd always watch over you and listen to your voice, like when she was here." "Will she always be here?" Maudie asked, feeling a cold fear creeping in. "No, dear, not for long. Soon we'll bury her under the grass and flowers. But the real mom who loves you won't be buried. I believe she'll be somewhere watching over you." For a moment, the child slipped from his arms and cuddled against her mom's cold chest, kissing her still lips. Then she said, "Goodbye to this mom who can't see, and good night to the other mom who hears me." Colonel Trevithick was amazed. Had he really made this little one understand, or did someone unseen share words of motherly wisdom with her? He carried her back to her bed and returned to his loneliness. But after half an hour, he heard her small voice calling, "Dad, Dad." He went to her, and her little arms wrapped around his neck tightly. "Can't I go too, Dad? If you ask God, will he let me? Because I love my mom so much, Colonel Trevithick felt like he had lost everything earlier that afternoon, but now he realized how much more empty his home would be without this child who resembled her mom so much. "Mom wouldn't want you to go," he said earnestly. "She's in heaven, and I have only you, Maudie, in the whole world. Mom wants you to stay with me." After that, she was quiet. When he checked on her an hour later, she was sound asleep, her small hand resting under her flushed cheek. She never asked for her mom again after that night, but her dad was certain she never forgot her. She was an unusual, serious little girl. She hardly made any noise, even when playing, and she didn't do any of the things her mom used to scold her for. Colonel Trevithick found her perfection unsettling. He wished she would misbehave sometimes like other children. She grew tall quickly but remained very thin, like a delicate snowflake that might melt away. Having her to care for kept Colonel Trevithick from drowning in his own sorrow. Nearly 2 years passed, and the little girl grew increasingly fragile. Just after her 8th birthday, she fell seriously ill. Her illness, a nervous fever, weakened her by the day. A skilled nurse joined Bessie in caring for her, and her dad rarely left her side. He spent half the day in her room and sneaked in several times at night to check her breathing. One afternoon, as he sat beside her bed, she looked up at him with a sad, mature gaze, beyond her years, though everything about her seemed too mature for her age. "Dad," she said, "I'd get better if I could, to make you happy. I know I'd get better if Mom were here to nurse me. Don't you remember how she'd put her hand on my head and make the pain go away when I had a headache?" Colonel Trevithick thought about how to explain the sad but hopeful event of his wife's passing to his daughter. Tears blurred his vision as he looked at the little face, so pure and innocent, gazing up at him. It had been many months since she had mentioned her mom, yet she remembered so well. He instantly recalled his wife's words on her last day. "I know that when Maudie needs me most, or you most want me, I shall be there beside you." Was she here now? Could her love somehow heal the child's frail body, or was it drawing her closer to herself? That night, Bessie was supposed to stay awake until 1 o'clock and then wake up the nurse. Colonel Trevithick would come in and out of Maudie's room, as usual. He went to bed and drifted into a deep sleep and a dream. In his dream, his beloved Maud was beside him, just as he first saw her, then as his bride, and later with baby Maudie in her arms. It felt like she was with him again, his pride, his darling, the only woman he had ever loved. He woke suddenly. Had his dream lasted all night? Was the red glow touching his face a sign of the sunrise? He jumped out of bed, realizing the entire night had passed, and he hadn't seen Maudie. He quickly put on a robe and rushed to her room, expecting to find the nurse there. Instead, he found Bessie asleep at the table where he had left her the night before. She must have been asleep for hours, forgetting to wake the nurse, who had also slept through her shift. They were all exhausted, of course. But what about Maudie? What had happened to her, alone and unattended? He pulled back the curtain of her bed and looked inside. Surely this wasn't the same Maudie from the night before, pale and worn out on her pillows? A bright face greeted him, with rosy cheeks and crimson lips. "I knew I would get better if she looked after me," exclaimed a voice happier and livelier than he had heard in 2 years. What did the child mean? Had she lost her mind? He composed himself and asked, "Who took care of you, my child?" "I found Bessie fast asleep." "Yes, Mama made everyone sleep, Bessie, you and the nurse. She sent you all the dreams you like best. And all night long, she sat here beside my bed, with her hand on my head, just like she used to. She was all dressed in white, with her hair falling around her shoulders. Her eyes were very bright, and her lips, when she kissed me, felt like they were melting away." "So you dreamed about Mama too, sweetheart?" "No, Papa, I didn't dream at all. Mama sat there all night, with her hand on my head. Sometimes I slept, but most of the time I was awake, looking at her. She didn't get tired at all until the first sunlight came in through the windows. Then she kissed me and left. I didn't see her leave. Maybe I closed my eyes for a moment. When I looked again, she was gone, and then I heard you coming in. She said she's with me every day, but she couldn't have come to me like this unless I really needed her. She wanted me to get better because she knew you'd be sad if I went to her. She told me to be good, take care of you, and make you comfortable. She said I should laugh and make you laugh because laughter is good. She said I got sick because I was sad for so long and didn't laugh. She doesn't want us to be sad anymore because she's very happy. The only thing that made her sad was seeing us mourn for her without knowing she's right beside us." "Was it your mother? Could it have been your mother?" The father wondered aloud. "Of course it was Mama, and she made me better. Just wait and see if Dr. Dale doesn't say I'm well." 2 hours later, Dr. Dale arrived. After examining Maudie, he turned to her father. "Trevithick," he said, "can you believe this is the same little girl I saw here last night? If miracles still happened, I'd say one happened here. I thought she was very sick yesterday, but today she's so well I'll only keep her in bed for a day or 2 longer, just to be safe." "Maybe it's a miracle," Colonel Trevithick said with a smile. But he didn't try to explain. Some things are too amazing to doubt or question, and this was one of them. 2 days later, little Maudie joined for tea. She wore a fresh white dress with pretty blue ribbons, looking like a little angel. But instead of sitting in her usual spot, she sat behind the teapot, where Bessie usually stood. "Shouldn't Bessie do that?" her father asked, noticing her hand on the teapot handle. Maudie laughed and shook her head. "No, I don't think Bessie's responsible. Mama said I should live just to take care of you, Papa." Once again, Colonel Trevithick silently wondered, could it have been the child's mother?